From the nation's capital to the surrounding communities in Maryland and Virginia, the deaths of black men at the hands of police continue to cast a long shadow. Across the DMV, the cycle of violence has left families broken and communities calling for justice. These are the names of just a few whose lives were cut short. The numbers tell a harrowing story. Police violence is a leading cause of death among black men in the United States, particularly in urban areas like the DMV. According to a report from the Washington Informer, police violence has become one of the leading causes of death for black men. Despite making up only 13% of the US population, black men are disproportionately represented in fatal encounters with law enforcement. In the DMV area, this stark reality is reflected in the deaths of men like William Green, killed in 2020 while handcuffed in a Prince George's County police vehicle, and Karen Hilton Brown, who died during a police chase in Washington, D.C. He was unarmed, handcuffed, and still they shot him. It's hard to understand how someone can be treated this way by the people who are supposed to protect us. These stories are not isolated incidents. The deaths of these black men represent a larger pattern of systemic injustice, one where black lives are deemed disposable and accountability is often elusive. Experts point to a combination of institutional racism, lack of police accountability, and deeply rooted systemic issues within law enforcement. A report from Al Jazeera underscores the idea that racial bias is deeply ingrained in policing practices, resulting in more aggressive tactics toward black communities. For decades, police officers have used unnecessary force against black people, a trend that has persisted with little accountability. These systemic failures are not new, but they have gained national attention in recent years as protests following the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and others have sparked a renewed push for police reform. In the streets of D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, communities are demanding change. From advocating for stronger accountability laws to pushing for defunding the police, the movement for justice is gaining momentum. No justice, no peace. We're not just asking for reform, we're demanding transformation. Policing in black communities has always been about control, not protection. It's time to rethink the entire system. In the aftermath of these tragic deaths, policymakers in the DMV are beginning to respond. Proposals for independent oversight, body cameras, and changes to use of force policies are now part of the conversation. But for many, this is just the beginning. As the nation grapples with the growing demand for racial justice, cities like DC are exploring what real change looks like. As the DMV mourns the loss of black men who should still be alive, the fight for justice continues. Their names will not be forgotten, and the push for a fairer, more just society is stronger than ever. A system that kills its most vulnerable is one that must be changed. The time for justice is now, dedicated to the victims and families affected by police violence. Special thanks to Al Jazeera, The Washington Informer, BBC News, and The Washington Post for their reporting.